Welcome back to the deep dive. If it feels like just navigating your digital life, whether you're running a small business or maybe just scrolling through your social feeds, if it feels like it's become this constant kind of draining battle against scams and just noise, well, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, it really does feel that way sometimes.
We're diving into a pretty substantial stack of sources today that honestly confirm we are wading through what you could call a digital minefield.
And our goal today really is to cut through some of that noise, maybe the panic even, and focus on what the data is showing us. We're charting this rapid surge in really specialized scams, everything from these sort of small-scale extortion tactics against businesses right up to massive global fraud networks.
And it's all current information tracked specifically to this week, November 7th, 2025.
Exactly.
So our sources today, they get us this really illuminating kind of roadmap of this new threat landscape. We actually start with something quite technical, a new defense tool Google just launched to fight a specific business threat.
Right, the review bombing issue.
Yeah, exactly. And then that leads us into this much broader warning about what's being called a five-front war of scams targeting, well, all of us, consumers.
And it all builds towards this frankly startling report concerning Meta, Facebook, and Instagram's parent company and its alleged revenue, maybe even potential profit, from this very same kind of fraudulent advertising.
A fascinating look at how, digital defense efforts can sometimes clash head-on with the realities of digital commerce.
Definitely. So let's start with that specific threat, that surgical one, because it hits local businesses right in their wallet and their reputation. We're talking about review bombing.
Right. On platforms like Google Maps, we've all seen a bad review, sure, but these sources detail something much more organized. It's an actual extortion scheme.
It really is.
And it's such a devastating attack because it hits that reputation instantly. How does the mechanism work exactly?
Well, the power of it is really the speed and the visibility. What happens is criminals just flood a business's profile, like their Google Maps listing, with a whole wave of fake one-star reviews all at once. Yeah. And that immediate bombing can just crash a rating that maybe took the owner, years to build up carefully.
Oh, absolutely. If you're searching for, say, a restaurant or a local shop, and you suddenly see it's got a 2.5-star average,
you're immediately looking somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
The financial damage is pretty much instantaneous.
And here's the really insidious part. That's just the setup, isn't it?
Exactly. That's just step one. They wait for that moment of panic. The owner sees their rating plummeting. They're distressed.
Yeah, and they make contact.
Then they reach out, often through these harder to trace third-party messaging apps like Telegram or WhatsApp.
Right.
And the demand is simple. Pay a ransom fee, usually in cryptocurrency, to make it harder to track. And this flood of bad reviews will just, miraculously stop. They're basically holding the business hostage. They count on the owner panicking and just paying to make the whole problem disappear quickly.
That's awful. So what's Google doing? You mentioned a countermeasure.
Yeah, and what's interesting here is Google recognized this needed something more than just tweaking their general content moderation rules.
Right, it's a specific type of attack.
Exactly. So they've launched a new dedicated tool. It's basically a form that lets business owners specifically report the extortion attempt itself, not just flag individual bad reviews one by one.
So it gives context.
Precisely. It gives Google's trust and safety team the actual verifiable context they need. It helps them connect the dots, track the criminal behavior behind it, remove the fraudulent reviews as a block, and potentially identify the actors sending those threatening messages from third-party apps.
Okay, so that's a critical layer of defense against a really, really painful tactic for small businesses.
Definitely. It's a targeted response.
It's good that Google provided that, surgical tool, that scalpel. But when you look at the bigger picture, the global map of these digital threats, it kind of feels like fighting this huge systemic digital infection with, a Band-Aid.
That's a fair analogy. The scale is much bigger.
Yeah, the scale of this problem really demands we look beyond just that one specific tactic. Google themselves are calling this a five-front war, detailing how attackers are exploiting everything, current events, economic pressures, just basic human psychology to defraud pretty much all of us.
Precisely. And if we connect this review bombing thing to that broader picture, these five fronts really show that attackers are, let's say, diversifying their portfolio way beyond just simple phishing emails now.
Okay, so let's unpack these. Let's lay out these five battlegrounds clearly, because I think just being aware of the pattern can change how you look at a suspicious link or maybe an offer that seems too good to be true.
Absolutely. Awareness is key. So, front number one, fake job postings.
Okay, this makes sense. With, the economy being what it is, lots of people looking for work, job seekers are a prime target.
Exactly. Scammers set up these pretty legitimate-looking websites, or they create fake recruiter profiles on professional networks. Looks real.
And what's the goal there?
It's usually twofold. First, they want your sensitive personal data through fake application forms, things like your date of birth, maybe social security number, address.
All the stuff you'd normally put on a job application.
Right. But second, and this is arguably worse, they trick applicants who are, hopeful or maybe a bit desperate into downloading what they call a required piece of software, maybe for a skills test or for secure communication, they say.
Let me guess, it's not for a skills test.
Not usually, no. That software often contains really dangerous malware, specifically something called a remote access Trojan, or a R8.
R8, okay, so that gives them what?
Yeah.
Complete control.
Pretty much. The RIT is the ultimate prize for them. It shifts the risk way beyond just identity theft. Now they have full system compromise. They can potentially monitor your keystrokes, access your files, even turn on your webcam or microphone, and crucially, access things like online banking apps completely undetected.
Wow, okay, that's front one. What's number two?
Front two targets the hottest tech sector right now, AI hype exploitation.
Artificial intelligence. Everyone's talking about it.
Exactly. And con artists are absolutely cashing in on that massive buzz. They know everyone wants an edge, wants to try the latest AI tools.
So how do they leverage that? Ads?
Ads, yeah. Compelling ads promising, say, exclusive or free access to amazing generative AI tools. They might use hijacked social media accounts to promote them or set up fake software project pages. It all looks very cutting edge.
And people click?
People click on those irresistible links hoping to get this great new tool, and then they download malicious apps. Or sometimes, even worse, they download something called fleeceware.
Fleeceware, what's that?
Fleeceware is, well, it's particularly insidious. Imagine you download an app that promises to, write your emails for you using AI. It looks great.
Okay.
But maybe to unlock all the features or even just to verify your account, it asks for your credit card details. You think, okay, maybe it's like a free trial thing.
Right.
Then maybe 3 days later, maybe a week, you check your statement and realize your card's been charged $50, $70, maybe more for a yearly subscription you never consciously approved. And often it's incredibly difficult to cancel.
So it just quietly signs you up for expensive hidden subscriptions.
Exactly. Death by 1,000 tiny recurring cuts. They also push fake browser extensions through this AI hype extensions that claim to enhance browsing with AI, but actually just steal your data in the background.
Okay, so fake jobs, exploiting AI hype. What's front three?
Front three plays on our desire for security and privacy. Malicious VPN apps.
VPNs, virtual private networks. People use those to be safer online, right?
That's the idea, yes. And scammers prey on that desire, especially during, say, major world events or times of uncertainty when people feel more vulnerable online. They offer these fake VPN services promising anonymity and security.
But they don't deliver.
They do the exact opposite. Once you install these malicious apps, they act as a gateway. They tunnel other, much more serious malware onto your device. Things like banking malware designed specifically to steal your login credentials, or info stealers that scrape your device for anything valuable, aiming to drain bank accounts or crypto wallets.
So it's like the wolf in sheep's clothing, security-wise.
Yeah.
You try to protect yourself, and you end up opening the door.
Precisely. It turns your attempt at protection into the very vulnerability the hackers exploit.
Okay, front four. The sources called this one the cruelest.
Yeah, I think that's fair. This is the fraud recovery scheme. And what makes it so cruel is that it targets people who have already been victims of a scam.
Oh, no. So they're hitting people when they're down.
Exactly. Think about the state someone's in after they've lost money to fraud. They're feeling vulnerable, maybe desperate, maybe embarrassed.
Yeah.
And then these criminals swoop in, posing as helpful agents. They might claim to be from a law firm specializing in fraud recovery, or maybe a trusted cybersecurity company, or even impersonate government agencies. The FBI actually issued a specific warning about this one.
Right.
They contact the original victim and promise they can recover the lost money. We have techniques, they say. We can get your funds back.
But there's a catch.
Of course. They just need a processing fee up front. Or maybe it's some court costs or taxes paid in advance to release the recovered funds.
And they just take that money, too.
They take that money and disappear. They scam the victim a second time, stealing even more. It's predatory because it exploits that desperate hope of getting back what was lost. Truly awful.
Wow. Okay, that's four. What's the fifth front?
And finally, front five, which is always relevant, especially timely as we, head towards the end of the year and major shopping seasons. Seasonal holiday scams.
Ah, yes, the Black Friday deals that look too good to be true.
Exactly. These are perennial. They happen every year, but they escalate dramatically during big shopping periods like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, the Christmas season.
So what's the angle? Fake websites?
Fake websites, yeah, but also just blanketing social media with counterfeit offers.
Yeah.
Fake ads, fake posts about deals that seem incredible. Huge discounts on popular electronics, limited edition sneakers, that kind of thing.
Designed to get your credit card details.
Precisely. It's all designed specifically to harvest credit card information and other sensitive personal data needed to either make fraudulent purchases themselves or sell your details on the dark web.
Okay, so those are the 5 fronts. Fake jobs, AI hype, malicious VPNs, the cruel recovery scams, and seasonal shopping cons. Just understanding those categories feels like the first step in maybe navigating the next few months a bit more safely.
It really is. That awareness is the prerequisite, sort of the baseline defense.
Agreed. But, knowing the sheer scale of this fraud across 5 distinct fronts, it naturally leads us to a crucial and maybe uncomfortable question about the platforms themselves, the places where these threats often live and spread.
Right.
While Google is, as we discussed, publicizing its specific defense tools, like the one for review bombing, there's this really shocking Reuters report suggesting that a major competitor, Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, might be facing a, let's say, self-inflicted problem, one tied directly to its own revenue.
Yeah, this report really does raise some fundamental questions about platform accountability and, frankly, financial incentives. We're talking about an internal Meta document reportedly from December 2024 that Reuters journalists viewed, and it makes some pretty extraordinary claims about the relationship between scam advertisers and the platform itself.
Okay, let's break that down, starting with the money. What did the report suggest financially?
Well, the headline figure is stunning. The report suggests that these scam ads could potentially account for a huge chunk of Meta's business. The internal estimate cited was 10.1% of its total advertising revenue.
10.1% of Meta's total ad revenue. That's enormous.
It is. Analysts took that percentage and estimated it could equal something in the neighborhood of $16 billion annually, flowing, potentially, from illicit or fraudulent activity advertised on the platform. Now, that figure itself is debated, but even as an internal estimate, it's quite something.
Astonishing, yeah. But beyond the dollar amount, what did the document suggest about how Meta was handling these advertisers? That seems key.
Right, and this is where the alleged incentive structure comes in, as detailed in that internal document viewed by Reuters. The sources suggest Meta was, and the quote used was, dangerously soft on high-spending advertisers who were also bad actors.
Dangerously soft. How so? What's the evidence for that?
The core insight, the really shocking part, is the alleged difference in tolerance levels based on how much an advertiser spent. According to the report, a typical small advertiser, maybe selling legitimate goods but making a mistake, might get flagged for, say, financial fraud violations. After maybe 8 policy strikes, they could be permanently shut down.
Okay, 8 strikes. Seems reasonable for repeat offenses.
But then the report alleges these high-value accounts, the big spenders, often tied to these large, potentially international fraud rings running scam ads, they were allegedly allowed to rack up over 500 strikes for the very same kinds of policy violations without being shut down.
500 compared to 8.
Yes. That's a disparity of, more than 60 times, 2 orders of magnitude, essentially.
That's incredible. Why? Why such a massive difference in tolerance? What's the alleged reason?
The reported reason, revenue maximization. Instead of banning these high-spending, high-violation accounts, the sources claim Meta actually implemented a system where these advertisers were charged higher rates for their ads as they accumulated more strikes.
Wait, so the penalty for committing fraud was paying more to commit more fraud?
That's the allegation. It essentially transforms the enforcement process, or lack thereof, into a potentially lucrative hidden monetization stream. If the penalty for running scam ads at scale is simply paying a premium on those ads, you have to ask, is it really an enforcement mechanism at all? Or is it just the cost of doing bad business?
That raises huge questions. And what about the actual banning process? Was there a threshold?
There was, allegedly. And the policy reportedly dictated an incredibly high bar for actually banning an advertiser based on automated detection. Meta's systems supposedly would only initiate a ban if they were 95% certain that the advertiser was committing fraud.
95% certainly. That seems extremely high for automated systems dealing with sophisticated scammers.
It does seem very high. And according to the document Reuters saw, that incredibly high threshold allowed an estimated, and this number is staggering, 15 billion. With a B.
15 billion.
15 billion potentially higher risk scam advertisements to be served daily across Facebook and Instagram.
Daily. 15 billion. That scale. It almost makes that five-front war we talked about feel less like a battle against external criminals and more like, well, like wrestling with the platform itself.
It certainly reframes the challenge, doesn't it? Now, to be fair and ensure balanced reporting, we absolutely have to include Meta's official response to this.
Right. What did Meta say?
In response to the Reuters report, Meta stated that the 10.1% revenue estimate figure was, in their words, rough and overly inclusive. They strongly pushed back on the characterization. They also emphasized that they are actively fighting the problem, stating they had removed over 134 million pieces of scam ad content just so far in 2025.
Okay, so they dispute the figure and highlight their enforcement actions, which, given the alleged scale in that internal document, 15 billion risky ads a day, suggests the fight is indeed immense.
Absolutely. It's clearly a massive challenge, however you slice it.
So looking back at our deep dive today, we've kind of journeyed from this very specific, almost niche business threat, the review extortion on Google Maps.
Like that targeted attack.
Yeah, all the way through to these broad systemic digital threats across those 5 key fronts. Jobs, AI, VPNs, recovery scams, holiday shopping.
Covering a huge range of vulnerabilities.
And we ended up confronting these really troubling questions about platform accountability, about financial incentives potentially running counter to user safety, particularly with the Meta allegations.
And I think for you listening, your first line of defense really does start with understanding those 5 fronts we detailed. Knowing the patterns, recognizing the bait, that's crucial.
Definitely. But maybe the bigger takeaway here is about the structural integrity, the fundamental trustworthiness of the digital spaces we all spend so much time in.
Yeah, knowing that the very platforms you rely on every single day for business, for connection, for information, knowing that they are navigating these enormous financial pressures and these complex ethical tightropes, it really does raise the stakes for your own digital caution, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. So maybe the final thought to leave you with is this.
Sure.
If a company like Google, with all its resources, has to create a brand new, specialized tool just to fight one specific tactic, like review extortion. And at the same time, we have credible reports based on internal documents suggesting another tech giant like Meta might be serving something like 15 billion potentially high-risk or scammy ads every single day.
Yeah.
Then what's the essential question you should be asking yourself? About the foundational security, about the long-term trust you place in these digital environments that really govern so much of your life, your finances, your business.
It's a heavy question.
It is. Maybe think about that level of risk assessment the next time you scroll past an ad online that promises something that just feels, a little too good to be true.